Okay, guys, video started, just so you know. All right, health journal questions on the board. What is one hobby or activity that you do weekly to improve your mental or emotional health? So last week, we took our test on physical health. All right, that was the conclusion of Unit 1. Okay, the people that have yet to take that test are Malaya, Riley, and Ava. Does that sound right? Okay, you guys are going to take that on Friday. All right, you're down in the gym. Okay, I'll print you one out and take it on Friday. Okay, Maya still isn't back. All right. Okay, so we finished up Unit 1 last week. What does that mean? We're starting Unit 2 today. All right, that's going to be mental and emotional health. Last thing about Unit 1 for you guys that missed, those are all of the lessons listed up there that will be on the test. So if you don't have, you can check through your journal. If you don't have any of those, okay, get with me. I'll be sure that you get those notes before you take the test. All right. Everybody else, you did really good on the test. Okay, exactly what I expected. All right, with the way the class is set up, good job. Okay, so this is Lesson 2, Mental and Emotional Health today. Lesson 1 in this unit is the 4 dimensions of health. If you remember back, we did that all the way back in our first lesson in January. That's when we talked about spiritual, social, physical, and mental and emotional, and how they all interconnect. So that's why this unit starts at Lesson 2. Before we get started with the notes, again, make sure that your notes are set up. March the 17th, okay? Underneath that, your health journal answer. Underneath that, notes, Lesson 2, Mental and Emotional Health, and the notes that we will be taking today off the PowerPoint. All right, we'll go underneath that. The first thing that we're going to do, though, in this unit, before we take any notes, okay? You guys remember that we did surveys over your physical health and your nutritional health, okay? How much you're working out, how much you're eating, all right, that different stuff. Okay, so we're going to start this unit with a survey, and you kind of got to see how your progress changed over that first unit. We're going to do the same thing with the second one. All right, so this is a survey. It's called Taking Your Emotional Health Pulse, okay? The range on these questions are most of the time, sometimes, and not very often. The questions are stuff like, I'm aware of my strengths and limits. I appreciate the things about me that make me unique. I can accept criticism. I can accept praise. All right. Answer this truthfully. Okay. Put down honest answers, because on the back, all right, you're going to total up your scores. The number of times that you put most of the time as your answer. Okay, so count them up. Let's say there's 25 questions. Let's say out of 25, you put most of the time on 10 of them. Write down 10, multiply it by 4, you get 40. Okay, the sometimes answers, you're going to multiply by 2. And the not very often answers, you're going to multiply by 1. After you have all 3 of your results, add those up, and you'll get a total number. At the bottom, okay, it says, how did you score? 75 to 100, your emotional health is very good. Okay, you can learn how to keep it that way. 50 to 75, your emotional health is good, but you have room to make improvements. 25 to 50, your emotional health is okay, but you can definitely use what you're learning, okay, to improve it. Everybody on the same page here? All right, guys. Get this done, okay? Turn it into me up here. All right? Put it on the stool up here. Turn it face up so that nobody can see your scores. All right? I'm not even interested in what your scores are, because that is personal to you. I'm going to check it for credit, and you will get credit points for doing this. All right? So it's not like the other worksheets where I check it for accuracy. Okay? This is for credit, because this is an opinion thing, and it's personal to you. And anything time I do something where you guys have to put personal stuff on there, okay, I try not to dig too much into it. All right? That's for you and you alone. All right? So try to remember what you get today. As we move on, we'll do it again. Hopefully that improves as we go throughout the unit. That's the point of these things. Okay, so after you get done with it, put it up there on the stool. Once everybody's done, we'll start the lesson. We'll take the notes for the day. Okay, we'll have a worksheet at the end, and then we'll be done. You're welcome. Alright guys, the more honest you are on this, okay, the more accurate your score is going to actually be to you. Okay, so be honest on it, get something out of it. Tally up your score, okay, see where you're at. Alright, even if it's low, that's okay. Okay, but be truthful and honest, that way you can actually see where you are. Alright, that's a big part of all things in health. Okay, finding out exactly where you are and then how we're going to take steps to improve. So get this done and then turn it in and we'll move on with notes. Anybody still working? All right. Thank you. Okay, guys, moving on to the lesson. Okay, moving on to notes. All right, so this lesson is going to be basically a complete overview of the whole unit. All right, this unit will take about as long as physical health did. Okay, then we'll move on to units 3 and 4, which only take about 2 weeks apiece. Okay, unit 3 is going to be all about goal setting. All right, we're going to talk about goal setting for all different dimensions of health. Okay, physical, nutritional, all right, mental, emotional. Okay, we'll do that for a couple weeks, and then we'll conclude with about a 2-week unit on drug abuse, addiction, and alcoholism. Okay, so that will be our last unit. That'll take a couple weeks. Once we're done with everything and testing starts at the end of the year, I like to get you guys up and active. Okay, so we'll be having some days where we go down to the gym and play some organized games. Have some days where we go up to the track. Okay, enjoy the warm weather. All right, but that is after we get done with all of our units. Okay. And that is so that you guys can be physically active for a while, okay, before we go on summer break. All right. Again, starting Unit 2 today. Okay, this is going to be an overview. It's going to touch on a bunch of the different lessons that we're going to talk about here coming up. Okay. All right. So the healthy behavior for today. Let's see if I can follow my mouse. Okay. Before we do healthy behavior, what is one hobby or activity you do weekly to improve your mental and emotional health? Okay, I'm going to take 3 answers here. All right? Somebody give me one. Okay, Brody, what you got? Read? Okay, that's a good answer. All right. Anybody else want to share? I'm going to get 2 more before I move on. Okay, Wyatt, what did you put?
Spending time with people closest to me.
Okay, great answer. All right, spending time with people closest to you. Okay, good. Anybody else got anything different? Anybody put anything that's a physical activity on there? What'd you put? Okay, running, great answer. Okay, running, taking walks, all right, working out. Those are all great for reducing stress, okay, improving our mental and emotional health. All right, taking time to read, taking time to enjoy time with the people who make us happy, the people that we enjoy spending time with. All great ways to increase our mental and emotional health. All right, so good job on that. Make sure that everybody has down an answer for the health journal question. Okay, starting on the notes now. Healthy behavior is engaging in activities that are mentally and emotionally healthy. So by the end of the lesson, you'll be able to analyze the characteristics of an emotionally healthy person, assess your own emotional health practices and behaviors, and analyze how emotional health can affect other related behaviors. All right, so your first notes in this lesson, okay? You are going to take this whole slide down, all right? Why? Because it's very important, all right? This is the overview of it. Mental and emotional health. It's how people think, feel, and act as they cope with life. All right, so how a person thinks about certain scenarios, or thinks about their day when they wake up, or thinks about their day when they go to bed, or how they feel about certain scenarios, or emotions or barriers that come within the day, okay, just living in the world. And the big part of that, okay, thinking and feeling, but also how they act about it, okay? That's going to be the big one, all right? Because that's what's going to have an effect on other people, okay? So, mentally and emotionally healthy people, they can respond to a wide range of feelings in healthy ways. So that means that they do not just avoid the feelings that they dislike, okay, like anger or sadness or grief, okay, things like that. The hard emotions, all right, the things that make us upset, they don't just completely run from that, okay. They are able to face those feelings, understand that those feelings are okay, and then work to a solution within themselves, all right, to move on and be mentally and emotionally healthy and be positive from there on out. They can manage their stress really well. Okay, stress is not just something that affects a couple of us, all right? Everyone has a certain level of stress on them, depending on what day it is, okay, or what they have coming up, all right, or their home life, okay, or what classes they're taking in school, or what sports they're playing, okay, just all different examples of stressors, things that can be stress in somebody's life. We're actually going to take about 3 lessons to talk about stress, okay, because we're going to talk about stressors, identifying those in our lives, the triggers, the things that make us feel stressed. We're going to talk about the physical response to stress, what it actually happens whenever you feel stressed out. So there's a long list of symptoms, there's a long list of different things that happen whenever people get stressed out physically, and not all of them happen to everybody. Okay, so it's important that you take the time personally to figure out which ones affect you. Okay, some things could be like shallow breath, getting harder of breath, hands sweating, feeling lightheaded. All right, multiple others, and again, we'll go farther and farther into that once we start talking about stress within the lessons. Okay, but stress, anyway, the whole thing is everyone has stress on them every day, and it's how we are able to handle that stress and cope with that stress. It depends on how successful we are going to be on any given day. Okay? And they can cope with with the hard feelings like anger, sadness, worry, without hurting themselves or others. Okay, that's the big part. All right, if you are mentally and emotionally healthy, then you are able to deal with your problems. Okay, and that doesn't mean you don't have somebody that you can talk to about things. All right, but just in general, okay, you're able to deal with your own problems within yourself. All right, and then move on, okay, in a positive way without having a negative effect on other people or yourself, emotionally, spiritually, physically, whatever it may be. All right. So I'm going to give you guys a few more seconds to get all this down, okay, then we're going to move on. Okay, guys, moving on. And anytime you don't get all the notes down on the slide, okay, and I move on, all right, you can always ask me after the lesson's over on another day, and we can go back and get those. Okay? All right. So now, we're just going to talk about what it means to be emotionally healthy. What it means to be emotionally healthy. Okay? What does an emotionally healthy person look like? What are the characteristics? What are the different things about them that make them emotionally healthy? Okay? So what I need you to write down on the next few slides. All right, go ahead and put kind of a title of emotionally healthy people, ... All right, so that's kind of your title up there. And then underneath of that, all you're going to write down is what's up here at the top, right beside it, for the next few slides. Okay, until I tell you different. All right, so all you need to have down on this first slide is accept who they are. So emotionally healthy people accept who they are. Okay, that's the first one. Believe it or not, this is one that people struggle with, but it's maybe the most important one, okay? Because before you can start working on the other parts of being emotionally and mentally healthy, all right, you have to have a good feeling about yourself, all right? You have to have high self-esteem and high self-respect, okay? You have to understand that this is who you are, all right? There's nothing that's going to change that, okay? And all you can do is be as successful as you can possibly be as a person. That is how I contribute. That is how I measure success. Okay, I coach, all right, but on a day-to-day basis, I'm not looking at, like, say, weightlifting. Okay, just as a personal example of myself, I know I talk about that stuff a lot, all right, but it's just easy for me to relate to it and then make it clear for you guys kind of what I'm talking about. Okay, so let's say that we're lifting up there. Okay, whenever I'm looking around the weight room, I'm not just looking at the strongest kid, okay, and saying, well, that person's successful, and then looking at the weakest kid and saying, that person's the least successful. All right, that's not how you gauge success. Okay, success is very personalized. All right, if the strongest person has been that strength for 3 months and hasn't changed, in my eyes, they're not being very successful. Okay, because they're the same as they were. They're not improving. They don't have a growth mindset. They're not going up. They're not ticking up. Okay, as far as that's concerned. The weakest person, maybe they've gained a lot of strength, okay, over the last 3 months, but they're still the weakest person. In my mind, that person is extremely successful. All right, because they are who they are, okay, and they put in the work in order to get wherever they are now, okay, after a period of time, okay, and I think that's very successful, and that is how you have to measure success for yourself, all right? Like I talked about last week a little bit, comparison is the thief of joy, If you are constantly comparing yourself to other people, their accolades, okay, whatever's going on with them, all right, you are never going to be happy yourself. Okay? You have to look inward and be proud of the things that you are proud of. Okay? That ties in a lot with having a high self-esteem and a high self-respect. Okay, what does self-respect mean? Okay, just as an example, all right? So if there's a friend group, okay, and I'm sure we can all think of a different friend group like this, all right, just on a day-to-day basis, okay? But where one person in that friend group is only in that group because everybody in the group likes to make fun of them, okay? That's the only reason that they hang out with them, all right? They keep them around just so they have somebody to make fun of, so that the heat is off of the rest of them, okay? Somebody who allows that to happen to themselves or doesn't understand that that's happening to them, they have very low self-respect, okay? Somebody who had high self-respect, okay, that respected themselves in a major way, they would not allow themselves to be in that situation. They wouldn't allow themselves to be, the end of everybody's jokes and things like that, okay? So somebody who has low self-respect, okay, may allow themselves to be in a situation like that. Having high self-esteem, that means that no matter what you are doing, okay, you are going to do the best that you can. Why? Because you have a high self-esteem for yourself. You think highly of yourself, all right? Just because you know that something's going to be difficult, just because you know that you might fail doing it, okay, you take it on head on. If you fail, you fail, but you understand that the only way that you're going to improve, the only way that you're going to get better is to try, all right? Somebody who has low self-esteem, okay? Let's say, for instance, we're talking about the PACER test, okay? And somebody could get a decent number on the PACER test and do okay, all right? But they're scared of what they're going to look like in front of everybody else. They're scared that they're going to trip and fall, or they're going to fail, or they're not going to get as many as they thought, and people are going to make fun of them. All right, so instead of taking it seriously and trying, all right, they're going to laugh about it. Okay, they're not going to try. They're going to do 2 or 3. Okay, and start laughing and go and sit down. All right. That is something that in high school, it's not a big deal. All right, it's a PACER test, whatever. Okay, but for you as a person, okay, you cannot keep that type of mentality throughout your entire life. Why? Because you won't succeed in anything. You'll end up in a position that you don't like. You'll be an underachiever. Okay, you're not going to get to the point that you could possibly get to. Okay, the level of success that you were capable of, you will never reach that if you don't have high self-esteem. If you don't try in everything you do and understand that it's okay to fail. All right, so that's the first one, okay? They appreciate what makes them unique. All right, everybody's different, everybody's unique, everybody has something about them that's different from everybody else, okay? And everybody should feel good about that. All right, second one, express feelings in healthy ways. Okay, so emotionally healthy people, they are able to express their feelings in healthy ways. That does not mean that once you're emotionally healthy, that does not mean that you are happy from now until the end of time. That's it, okay? You're good, all right? That's not how that works. Everyone is going to experience all the emotions at some point in their life, okay? It's how we express those feelings, how we express those emotions, depends on how mentally or emotionally healthy we are. So they don't just avoid feeling angry, okay? I can speak from personal experience, like whenever I was younger, all right? Now, if I would get mad, the first thing I wanted to do is just shut down, go away, forget about it, all right? Forget the situation, forget whoever I was mad at, okay? That is not the way to handle that. And we're going to have a lesson, I think it's like lesson 12, we'll talk about anger, okay? How to handle that, how to control that, how to come to a positive resolution from that, okay? But my point being is that emotionally healthy people don't hide from certain emotions just because they're not very good at handling them, okay? They let themselves feel a wide range of emotions and understand that all feelings are okay, and it's how they act on them that matters. They're also able to deal with difficult feelings in ways that don't hurt themselves or others. You're going to see that repeated continuously throughout this unit, okay? Because being emotionally healthy means that you are able to work through your own problems within yourself without it having an impact on other people in your life, okay? A negative impact on other people in your life, your family, your friends, whatever. Or yourself. Okay, number 3, again, all you have to write down is what is up here beside emotionally healthy people. Okay? That's all that needs to be in your notes. So, emotionally healthy people, they build healthy relationships. They connect with others and treat them with respect. So that means that their friendships all look like 2 people that respect each other. that they have respect for them, okay? They're not mean to each other, all right? There's not one that's constantly putting the other one down, okay? There's not one that's being constantly bullied, all right? They have love and respect for each other as a person, okay? Just on a base level. If they're emotionally healthy, they have people they care about, they trust, and they depend on. They're also able to listen and share within their relationships. So that doesn't mean that every relationship that they have is set up like this, okay? Just because you're mentally and emotionally healthy doesn't mean that every person that you know you're going to have a great relationship with. All it means is that you have 2 or 3 solid relationships in your life that you know for a fact that you can lean on. That you can be honest with that person will be honest with you, all right? You trust and you care about that person trusts and cares about you. It's important for everybody to have 2 or 3 of those relationships, okay? Next, show care and concern for others. So emotionally healthy people show care and concern for others. They accept people without judging them. They try to be kind and help when they can. And they show empathy. What does empathy mean? All right, empathy means that you are able to put yourself in somebody's situation and understand the emotions that they are feeling. All right, so this isn't as good an example because you guys, it really wasn't that long ago that students had to carry all of their textbooks around every class. Okay, we had a science textbook, we had an English textbook. All right, that's what we learned from. Okay, that was how basically all the classes were set up. Okay, so walking down the hall, it was pretty common for somebody to be carrying all their books. Okay, and to drop them in the floor. All right, somebody who shows a lack of empathy would point and laugh. All right, make fun of it with their friends and keep moving. Okay, somebody who would show empathy would see the situation and say, "Oh man, what if that would happen to me?" Okay, and they pause, they stop, they help them pick up the books, okay, and they help that person feel better about the situation, not to feel embarrassed. All right, that's somebody who would show empathy. Okay, somebody with a lack of empathy. All right, somebody who's not as emotionally or mentally healthy. Okay, they're going to show a lack of empathy and make fun of that person. All right, and we will have a whole section on bullying. Okay, within this. All right, and I'm sure you guys have heard it your entire lives. Okay, if somebody is being a bully, if somebody's putting somebody else down continuously, all right, it is less because that person has something to bully them about, and way more that the person bullying has something within themselves that is wrong. Okay, something is off. They are deeply upset about something. All right, and they are taking that out on others. Okay. So again, those people are not mentally and emotionally healthy. All right, and they have a lack of empathy. Okay. All right, emotionally healthy people manage stress in healthy ways. Okay, if there's anything from this unit that you are going to learn, it is how to manage stress. What the physical and mental reactions are to stress for you personally, what your stressors are throughout the day, the ones that you can avoid and the ones you can't avoid, the ones that you got to take on. Okay, we'll identify all those, ways to manage the stress in the moment, ways to manage stress whenever other people are making it worse. Okay, the fallout from all of it. All right, if you don't handle stress correctly, okay, what could happen? How do I fix it after? We'll go into all that stuff. Again, if there's anything you learn from this unit, it's going to be what brings on your own personal stress and how to deal with it. Okay, because I understand that in high school, okay, even when you get to college, all right, and in your daily life, stress is always going to be there. It's always going to be a part of your life. Okay, so we have got to figure out ways to handle that, so that it doesn't hinder us from being successful. Okay, that's the big part. Because stress, fear, lack of confidence, all those things can be stuff that keep us from achieving whatever we want to achieve. All right, that's stuff that we have got to conquer and get past. So they avoid stress when they can, and again, that's not running from it. That's just identifying what stressors they can avoid throughout the day and staying away from them. Okay, that's mentally and emotionally healthy. All right. They see the positive side of changes. Okay, being a pessimist versus being an optimist. All right. Our next lesson is life outlook. We're going to talk about that. They deal with stress in ways that don't hurt themselves or others. Okay, again, they're able to deal with their own problems without hurting themselves or others. Okay, emotionally healthy people resolve conflicts in healthy ways. That's the next one that needs to be in your notes. just like stress and anger, okay, we're going to have a lesson over conflict resolution. We'll also have a lesson over communication. We'll talk about the different styles of communication. Okay? Aggressive communication, where somebody is not looking at the other person's point of view and just simply stating what they need, and that's the only thing that's going to work. The passive form of communication, which is not getting your point across and allowing other people to take advantage of you. And the assertive speech, okay, which is what is going to result in conflict resolution. The only time that you can get a resolution to a conflict is if both people have assertive speech. Both are clearly stating what they need in a very clear tone of voice. All right? Not angry, not passive, very clearly. If the other person is doing that as well, those two people can come to a resolution to a conflict. If both are aggressive, it can't work. If both are passive, it can't work. Okay? Both people have to have an assertive style of communication in order to find conflict resolution. And again, we'll talk about that later. Okay? So they're able to resolve conflicts in healthy ways. So if you are trying to resolve a conflict with a mentally or emotionally healthy person, all right, they're going to try to see your side of you. Okay? They're also going to take responsibility for their part in the conflict. And they're able to manage their anger and work through they'll work through others to resolve their problems. Okay? All right, moving on. So, resolve conflicts in healthy ways. Okay, so emotionally healthy people are optimistic. What does it mean to be optimistic? Okay, it means that 99% of the time, every situation that we encounter, we're going to look at it and try to see the brighter point of view. See what the better side is. All right? If we're always clinging to the negative, if we're always thinking about what's wrong, okay, there's a lot wrong, okay, and there's going to be a lot wrong as you go through life, all right? You have got to look at the positive side of things, that way you can move forward and be successful, okay? If you're constantly clinging to the negative, all right, that is not going to be the case. Okay, so you have to choose the positive over the negative. You have a good feeling, or most of the people, they have a good feeling about their lives, and they believe that things will work out for the best. Again, guys, so just small stuff like going into a test, thinking that there is no way I fail this, I'm going to pass. All right? On the flip side, there is no way I pass this, I'm going to fail. Believe it or not, guys, that small thought, okay, going into it, that's going to have a tremendous impact on whatever that may be. I'm not saying it's going to be the difference between 100 and a 50, all right? But just having a positive mindset, that allows you to pull out the effort, all right, in order to do as well as you can on that test. So that could be the difference between an 80 and a 72. Okay, so it matters to have a positive mindset. It does. Okay, your thoughts about what's going to happen have a tremendous impact on what actually happens. Doesn't mean that it can actually change anything drastically, but it does matter. This next one is my favorite, okay? You need to have a growth mindset. Everyone needs to have a growth mindset. What does it mean to have a growth mindset? It means that you can fail and fail and fail and fail, and you are not going to quit. People who have a growth mindset are continuously working to become better. They're continuously working to learn, to become better in their physical health as well. All right, just as a person overall, they are continuously striving to be better and better and better. Okay, so this little illustration right here, all right, it kind of sums it up, okay? Here's a thought in the back of his head. It says, I'm a loser, all right? But what's more important is that he has a growth mindset that overtakes that, okay? It says that everybody, because he just made a mistake, okay, everybody makes mistakes, I can learn from this, all right? So people who have a growth mindset, they enjoy learning new things and improving skills. They don't give up whenever they fail, and they learn from their mistakes. All right, so what's the flip side of having a growth mindset? Okay, you try something new. You're really bad at it. Okay, you constantly fail at it. All right, but there is part of it you enjoy, but you're not doing well at it, so you're just going to quit it completely and move on. Go to something that's easy to do at first, but you don't enjoy it as much. Okay, that's not what we want to do. All right, we want to strive to do the things that we enjoy. Okay. So, just as an example, all right, I'm sure you all have heard this, okay, billionaires, all right, people ask billionaires, how did you do it? Okay, they said, well, I failed 1,000,000 times, and all of a sudden I got it right. Okay, so that's just something that is continuously true through all careers, all people in life, all right? They fail, they fail, they fail, they fail, then all of a sudden they get it right, okay, and then they achieve what they're trying to achieve. Alright? You're also able to learn from their mistakes. Okay, so what does that mean? Alright? So say that something doesn't go well, alright? And you blame it on everyone else involved but yourself. Okay? The next time that you go to do that thing, it doesn't matter who's with you and who's not. You didn't learn from whatever you did wrong the first time, so you're just going to do it again. And you're going to fail. Okay? Alright, and then I'm going to blame everybody else again for why I failed. I'm going to try it again. Okay, you're going to fail because you were continuously blaming other people for why you're coming up short. Okay, why you're failing whatever it is you're trying to achieve. Okay, if you actually look and take personal responsibility and see what I did, okay, what did I do to make this not work? And then you fix that, the chance for success is going to increase dramatically. Alright? And I know everybody realizes that, that's kind of common sense, but we're all guilty of it, of thinking that we are the exception. Okay, thinking that we are special. Alright? Thinking that we can't make a mistake. Everybody else can make a mistake, but we can't. Okay, that is not the case. And if you want to be as successful as you can possibly be in life, you have got to get over that. Okay, you have to understand that everybody makes mistakes. It's the people that learn from their mistakes the most that are going to be the most successful. Okay? What's the definition of insanity? All right, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Okay, that's the definition of insanity. Okay, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting the result to be different. All right, that is not how things work. Okay, moving on. They're able to take responsibility for their personal choices and actions. So building off of what I just said, yeah, go ahead. So building off of what I just said, all right, taking responsibility for your personal choices and actions, so that, not so that you can beat yourself up and feel bad about it, but for the sole fact that you can now see what was wrong and you can fix it next time. That's having a growth mindset. That's being positive. That's striving to be better. Okay? That's not settling. All right? That's not settling for less. That's working to be as successful as you can possibly be. Taking responsibility for their personal acts, choices, and actions. And guys, I will say that working with high schoolers, okay, this is a huge one, all right? And I'm not talking about you guys in particular or personally, okay, but just overall, you guys have a really, really hard time taking responsibility for your actions, okay? I don't know where that stems from. I don't know if it's because you've always gotten away with it, all right? But anytime that I get on anyone about anything, 99% of the time they're going to look at me and say, well, they were doing it too, or this person lets me do this, or this is going on here, or this person was doing this. Instead of, yes, I know, you have told me before that I can't do this, and I did it, all right, and then we're moving on, okay? But that's not the way that you go about it, all right? That's the best way to go about it because that's resolved. In my mind, that's resolved, okay? Like you understand that you shouldn't have done it, I remind you you shouldn't have done it, okay? We're all moving on. You don't have to do it anymore, okay? We're good. But whenever it takes the other path of, well, this, and this is the reasons I did it, okay? Not myself, all right? Not because I chose to do it, okay? These are the reasons I did it. And then I'm like, well, is it still you that did it and you know that you shouldn't? All right? You guys are understanding what I'm saying, okay? What's going to happen in that scenario is that they're going to continue to get in trouble, continue to mess up, and that eventually will result in going to the office, okay? Maybe suspension, things like that. Whereas if you just take responsibility for your actions the first time, that can just be a quick resolution to all conflicts. All right? Anyway, that's my little spill on that. Again, not talking to you guys personally, but that is what I have noticed, okay, just in 3 years of working in a high school, okay, you have a really hard time with that. All right? My point being in that is that once you get out of high school, once you get out of college, or once you go straight in the workforce or go to trade school, okay, all great options, is that one day your boss is going to look at you and tell you to do a job, all right? If you look at them enough and say that it's their fault that it didn't get done, then you are going to get fired, okay? And they're going to find somebody else who will do that job for you, all right? Because that stuff does not work in the real world, okay? You can't just say it's this so-and-so's fault, all right? You have to take personal responsibility for what's going on. Okay, so they don't blame others for their problems, they set goals and work to achieve them, and they believe they can affect what happens in their lives. That last one I think is really important. Okay, everyone has got to have a belief that they are not just wandering through the world and all the things in life are pushing them to what they're going to be. Okay, you have to have a belief that what happens in your life is because of you. The choices that you make on a day-to-day basis, that's why you're in the situation that you are in now. okay? Because that's true, all right? It's not, yes, other people can affect it, but if you have that belief that is your actions, okay, then you are going to be able to go where you want to go. If not, if you don't believe that, if you think it's everything else, you're going to end up in a situation that you don't want to be in, all right? Okay, last one like this, all right? Ask for help when they need it. All right, I was guilty about this for a long time, okay? I thought that if you asked for help, that meant that you didn't know what was going on and that you weren't capable of doing whatever it is you wanted to do, okay? That is the farthest from the truth as possible, okay? Everyone needs help, all right? Everyone needs to go everywhere they can go to get help, okay? Even if it's somebody that you think is just not very smart and they don't know anything, they could know the one thing that could help you out. All right? Always be open to advice. Always hear out what people have to say. It doesn't mean you have to make it fact for yourself. Okay? Absorb all the information you can. Okay? So, they know it's okay to ask for help. They have people to talk to about their problems. We've talked about in here continuously about how each of you need to have 2 or 3 people, all right, that you can talk to, okay, on a day-to-day basis or just whenever you may need it, all right, that are going to help you and be supportive for you. Okay? Everybody needs those people in their life, even if it is just a vent. All right? Sometimes I just need to vent. Okay? And my wife understands that, all right, and I go off about something and we don't even talk about it. Okay? But she's my person for me to do that to, so that maybe I don't do it on you all one day. You know what I'm saying? Like, sometimes that stuff just needs to happen. That's why it's good to have those people in your life. Okay? They reach out to others for support. All right, so, almost there, guys. This little chart right here, this just reminds you that all things are interconnected. These are the 4 dimensions of health. Okay, this is the first lesson that we had way back in January. Okay, all things are connected. Like she said, she runs to improve her mental and emotional health, okay, or just to give her brain a break. All right, so that's just an example of all these things are connected. Just keep that in mind. Okay, these are ones we just kind of talked about. Okay, but you don't need to write any of these down, all right, because most of them are things that you've already written down. But practicing positive self-talk, again, going into a test. I know that I'm going to pass this test. I know that I'm going to do well. Okay, that can have an impact on the test. Managing stress. Expressing emotions in healthy ways. Building healthy, supportive relationships with others. Managing anger and dealing with other difficult feelings. Resolving conflicts, setting goals and taking action to achieve them, and getting help when they need it. These are the characteristics and skills for improving emotional health. Okay, we're going to be going more in depth and talking about that as we go throughout this year. All right, guys, I have one more thing for you to do. Okay, if you do not get it done today, it's okay because we only have 4 minutes left. All right, but this is breaking off exactly what we just talked about. So the first question, all right, I just need a sentence right here. Why do you think emotional health is important? Then underneath that, it's going to be the same ones that you just wrote down in your notes. Okay? Now all you're doing is personalizing it to yourself. So the first one is accept who they are. You're going to list one quality that makes you unique. Okay? So there's 10 of those. All right? Get it done. Turn it into me. Okay? And then we are done for the day. Tomorrow we will do Life Outlook Lesson 3. Welcome.